Joining me now, Republican Congressman Michael Burgess of Texas. He's also one of the few medical doctors in Congress, so it's a pleasure to have you here, Congressman.
Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
So I was a little confounded by the fact that we've already spent all the money on the bill. How did that happen?
We spent a ton of money on the bill, and actually it's accelerated since the Supreme Court heard the oral arguments in March, which tells me they know something that maybe we don't know. Every time I've had the secretary or undersecretary into our committee in the last several months, I've said, what is the contingency plan? What are you all talking about in the break room as far as planning if this thing is struck down? And of course, they won't tell me. And perhaps it's not their job to speculate, but you've got to believe something this big, 1/6 of the American economy, that is now hanging in the balance, they have to be having some discussions. For a change, wouldn't it be refreshing if you talk this over with the legislative branch? Because after all, we're the ones who are going to have to pick up the pieces.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see actually what Republicans do. That's a big debate as well.
Correct.
Because, if the shoe does fall and the individual mandate gets struck down, or as you were suggesting in the break, the whole law gets struck down, what should come next, Congressman?
Well, I do believe the whole law will be and should be struck down. I think Roger Vincent in Florida, Judge Vincent, had it exactly right in February of 2011. Let's face it, there are some things that have to happen pretty quickly. And people talk about kids on their parents' insurance. People talk about the donut hole. Actually, neither of those requires congressional action. Insurance companies have been talking now for the last couple of weeks about, hey, we may just continue that as policy. Maybe it's a pretty good idea. Maybe we'll just adopt that. In any case, an insurance contract lasts for the contract year. It doesn't expire July 1st. So those kids would not be taken off their parents' insurance companies on July 1st if the law falls. The donut hole, let's face it, there were secret deals that went on down at the White House 3 years ago, deals that you and I would not believe would be possible.
We've talked about those here on the show.
They paid for, the Pharmaceutical Research Manufacturers Association paid cash money to keep reimportation out of the language of the law. As a consequence, they used that money to close the donut hole. As far as I'm concerned,
donut hole, of course, we're talking about Medicare and
the coverage gap in Medicare
for seniors.
Correct.
Let me ask you about one other provision, though. That's covering conditions. This is something the American people say they want to have. Your view?
Well, and this is where I think a great deal of care needs to be taken, because you have people in a federal pre-existing program which didn't exist before this law came along. It's not a lot of people. It's 62,000. I mean, that's not the 8 to 12 million that we were told would need this kind of help. But still, 62,000 people with tough medical problems is a pretty compelling constituency. And we, as House members, House Republicans, need to be prepared to deal with that. And we can't just shrug our shoulders and say, we're not going to deal with it. We have to. And my opinion, for what it's worth, is that these people should be taken into state risk pools or state reinsurance programs that already exist. If the Affordable Care Act had been done right, this is how we would approach the problem. We would have helped states with their existing risk pools that they already had.
Well, let's talk about the big kahuna here. And to me, that's the money.
Sure.
Right now, FY 2011 total, national health care spending is 18% of GDP. This, to me, is you just can't continue doing that. How do we fix the problem of the cost of health care?
Well, the money follows the patient is the correct way to go about this. I met with a group of doctors down in Dallas a couple of weeks ago, just around the table. What should this look like? And this group came up with 10 principles that is going to be getting a lot of publicity in the next several weeks, and I think that's a good thing. It's their product, not mine, but at the same time, I think that was an honest effort to try to get their arms around this problem. I've had a health savings account for years. I am very sensitive as to what things cost because I hand them my debit card. That's right. Paper or plastic means folding money or my debit card. And that's actually the way it should be for some expenses. But I do have that catastrophic coverage. If that never event does happen, I do have the coverage to help me through or to help my family through that type of event. I wish more people had that type of coverage. It is much less expensive as far as my premiums go. And it overall cost, look what Mitch Daniels did in Indiana with his Healthy Indiana plan. His costs went down by 11% over 2 years, the same 2 years.
We could use some of that. We could sure use some of that.
Absolutely.
Well, Congressman, thanks for your help today. We really appreciate your time, and I hope we get to talk to you Thursday.
We will do it. And, if this doesn't get struck down, 2014, a lot of this damage becomes structural, and it is embedded now then in our national budget, and we'll never get those dollars back. They will be subscribed to for years to come. And your figure was pretty scary, but I'm afraid it's actually double that.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we'll stay in touch with you, Congressman. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.